Navigating the insidious illness of Alzheimer's is something nobody asks for. The disease sneaks up on you and your loved one, and it feels like you've been sucker punched in the gut. Then you ask, where do we turn for help? Who do we call? What do we do? These questions and more are what we hope to answer and give you some direction and hope. Now let's join our host, Jeff Edwards.
Greetings and welcome. This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, episode 26. Now today is Saturday, September 21st, and it's World Alzheimer's Day. It's a global effort to raise awareness and challenge the stigma around the Alzheimer's disease and other dementia. Join the Alzheimer's Association as they recognize the more than 55 million people across the world who are affected by this terrible disease. Whether you fundraise for the cause or share information about Alzheimer's or even talk to a loved one about dementia, you can make a difference. Join the fight against Alzheimer's and all other dementia. And after the program, check out alz.org. So, how was your week? Smooth? Or were there a lot of challenges? Well, we hoped it was a good one. You know, every week we always mention our 3 rules that we follow here at GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. Number 1, you have to take care of yourself because if something happens to you, who is going to take care of your loved one? And 2, you can't do it alone. You need help. Find good caregiver groups or network with friends and relatives. And number 3, make a list of people, friends, relatives, coworkers who have offered to help you in time of need. And then make a list of things you need done but can't do yourself because caregiving duties are overwhelming. Use the lists. Start at the top and keep going till you get what you need done. You'll find it very helpful. On today's GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, we're going to look at rule number 1 and what it means to care for yourself. And we're going to spend some time with a friend of the show, Amy Schenck, from Neuropsychiatric Research Center of Southwest Florida. More about that coming up. Okay, what does our rule number 1, take care of yourself, really mean? Taking care of yourself means being involved in activities that enhance your sense of well-being and may help reduce your stress level. You'll have a lot of that. Spend time with friends and family, eat well, engage in physical activity, and see your doctor regularly. Now, here are tips on how to maintain your own health. Think about ways you can get support now. For example, include an afternoon to yourself in your monthly schedule. Ask others to visit or go to lunch with the person living with dementia while you're gone. Build a support network. Creating a support system before you think you need it will minimize your stress as the disease progresses. Look at current support systems you have already in place and consider the people you turn to most often in times of need. Connect with other care partners to acquire encouragement and comfort from others who understand what you're going through. Learn more about in-person and online support groups. Ask for and accept help. Care partners often wait too long before asking for help from others. Rest when needed and allow time for yourself and your own interests. Try not to take things personally. Symptoms of the disease can cause an individual to forget events or commitments. And remember, this is not a reflection of his or her character. Stay healthy through diet, exercise, and regular visits to the doctor. Stay engaged by continuing to be involved in activities that are important to you and enhance your sense of well-being. Allow yourself the opportunity to laugh when funny situations arrive. There you go.
We'll be right back to GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Repeat after me. Apple, table, penny.
Apple, red.
When you tell people he has Alzheimer's, but he's in a clinical study, it's
not so hopeless.
Yeah.
Maybe, it's like I hope we can just hang in there and maybe they'll find something.
Ask me again.
What season is it?
It's one of those when all the leaves down and
I know it's there, but I can't get it.
Yeah.
And it just kills me.
I remember watching Dad interact with the kids and thinking, geez, in 5, 6 years, will he even know who they are? 1 in 10 Americans over 65 has Alzheimer's disease. Learn more today at brightfocus.org.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
Our guest today has been here before. She has been so helpful to the development of GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers. She has worked with the Alzheimer's Association and is still a volunteer conducting education and support groups, conducting educational programs, and providing support to caregivers. Now, we talked for a little more than an hour and a half. So there is a lot, and I mean a lot of great information that Amy has shared. In consideration to time elements and for the program and for you and your time constraints, we will, over future episodes, utilize different parts of our interview as it applies to the topics we are sharing with you. As I listen and edit the interview, I'm amazed as to how descriptive Amy is and how she always gives examples of how to apply approaches to situations. Today, we're going to discuss why and when people should get a memory screen. Are there other reasons people may have memory issues? And how to work with a loved one who is reluctant to... Hi, I'm on the phone with Amy Schenck from NPRC, correct?
Absolutely. You've got it right, Jeff.
Okay. How you doing, Amy? Good to talk to you again.
It's good to catch up with you again. I feel like it's been a while since we talked, and
It has been.
I can't believe we're actually coming into fall now. A lot of things that we can still talk about, and one of the things that I'm very passionate about is doing whatever we can do to keep our memory intact.
I got to try to keep mine intact. As we get older, it gets tougher, and that's just normal. Well, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. We talked off mic initially in a direction we wanted to go. So why should people get a memory screen? That's question one. And number two will be, tell us what a memory screen is.
Well, one of the things that I always do when I'm out in the community is, this is a very typical couple questions I ask. I ask people, how many of you have had an EKG? Pretty much everybody in the room. How many of you get blood tests, blood work when you go to the doctor? Every hand rises. And then I say, how many of you have had a memory screen? And depending on the audience, I may have one or two, maybe a few more than that. And one of the things that I say is, your brain is the most important organ. And a lot of times we don't talk about getting a memory screen. So what is a memory screen? Why would you want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a couple things. There are a lot of different issues that can cause memory challenges. And you know what, Jeff, let's circle back around to that. Remind me of that because I can give you some examples. But we've really gotten better in terms of managing our health, all of us. I mean, we know that there are some routine things that we do at certain ages. Men get their PSA, women get a mammogram. We all have the pleasure of getting a colonoscopy and other types of tests. Our brain is really important. And one of the things that can be a very big misconception is, as we get older, of course we're going to have significant memory issues. And that's just not true. What is true is that as we age, guess what? Our memory's not as good as it used to be. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Well, you know what? A lot of other things aren't as well. And I always joke a little bit about the blessings of aging. And that may include some gray hair, may include maybe not being quite as limber or flexible, wrinkles, all of those wonderful gifts of getting older. And our memory is typically not as sharp as it was 20 years ago. Now, that said, there are changes that happen to our memory that are absolutely not normal. And we don't want to just chalk it up to old age, which is where a memory screen comes in. So there are memory screens that many times, kind of a mini screen, that our primary care practitioners can do. What we do at NPRC, a little bit more involved. We have two types of testing that we do. The first is called a mini mental status exam. And there's more than one type of exam like this. It's paper pencil type of a test. We ask questions. We have people follow directions. We ask them to remember some things. We ask them to count backwards. All kinds of things that, again, just give us a snapshot of one's thinking and cognitive ability. Again, just a snapshot. The big name is the auditory verbal learning test, which is a mouthful. So it's also known as the AVALT or AVLT. And that's a little different because we're really focusing more on short-term memory. Now, it sounds like really this big thing. You know what, Jeff? It's word recall. And what this test does, we give people a list of words, and after we're done, we have them repeat as many as they can remember. We do that 5 different times. And I'll tell you, one of the first things I usually tell people is just relax. This is kind of tough. So that's what we do at the Neuropsychiatric Research Center. Some places may do things a little bit differently, but the whole point of doing that, the testing is to see, is there anything that is different than what we'd expect? Along with the memory screen, it's really important. And one of the things that I always try and focus on is to ask the individual how they would describe their memory. So if I ask you, Jeff, how would you describe your memory? What would you say?
Mine's like Swiss cheese lately. Nothing
okay.
Nothing stays, nothing sticks.
I've had answers very similar to that. And there can be a lot of reasons for that.
Right.
So that's what I get. I might ask you another question, a follow-up question to say, well, Jeff, would you say it's gotten better or worse over the last, few months or years?
I would say mine's gotten a little bit worse. Now, I would say I'm a little different because I know why it is, but if I said it's gotten worse, you would say, what? You'd say, okay, you'd ask me another question.
And so what I'm trying to do with those questions is get a sense of your perception of things. Sometimes during that initial period, sometimes I may have a spouse or an adult child with me to kind of get their perspective. But that's just a tiny piece of the puzzle. After we've done that memory screening, what we do is we talk a little bit about what we see. There's not a diagnostic process. It is a data point. And that's what I really encourage people to remember. If I go to the doctor, and we all do, we're all of a certain age, sometimes we go more than we'd like. Mm-hmm. One of the typical things that happen, we'll have an examination of our blood pressure and pulse, pretty standard. Those are data points. Our practitioners don't make a diagnosis of anything with those 2 data points. They gather more information. And that's, again, kind of circling back to the memory screen. You just have to have a place to start. The reason I encourage people, even people who say, I think my memory's pretty good, it's really helpful to have a baseline. So just to know where you start. If things do change, you at least can look back to where you were. So again, I'm passionate about this because I think it can be really easy to say, oh, I can't remember anything. And you know what? I walked into a room. I can't remember what I went in there for. A lot of those things are actually really normal, but they can be very worrisome. What I really encourage people to do, if you're concerned, when in doubt, check it out. Sometimes we can let our imagination run wild and say, oh my gosh, I can't remember this. I forgot that appointment. And then we get worried and then we get anxious. You know what happens?
You forget more.
That impacts our memory.
Yes, it does.
So things like, we talked a little bit earlier, not sleeping well, excessive stress. When we're anxious and nervous, sometimes we feel stressed, we don't sleep well. Guess what happens? Sometimes that can impact our memory. Lack of sleep. And that's probably a whole nother conversation. We're learning more and more about the importance of sleep.
Yeah, definitely.
Lack of sleep can contribute to memory issues. New medication interactions, those can lead to memory issues. Depression, and one of the things that I get passionate about, particularly in October, because this year, National Depression Screening Day is October 10th. 2024. There's some overlap in symptoms, sometimes with depression as well as memory issues. And one of the particular challenges is there's some level of stigma with mental health issues as well as with memory issues. shouldn't be that way, but we have to acknowledge that it is. So there are some symptoms. So things like changes in personality, lack of initiative, not wanting to do things that once were enjoyable or pleasurable. Sometimes changes in hygiene or how we care for our home, those changes. You know what? That can be some early symptoms of some depression. It may also be some early symptoms of some more significant memory issues. This really kind of highlights what we talked about, though.
Sure it does.
When in doubt, check it out. We all get words mixed up sometimes. I'm going to bet you, Jeff, that you've done this, because I know I have, and I'm thinking about something I'm trying to find for an upcoming trip. I put it in a really safe, smart place.
And you
I have
can't
no
find
idea
it.
what that is.
I know.
Now,
don't you hate that?
we do that, but it's those things that many of us see that can create that anxiety. And sometimes the anxiety can be a barrier to getting treatment. So kind of coming back and have thyroid issues, excessive alcohol intake can impact your memory. There's many, 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 many things. And what I want people to do is to say, not sure what's going on, but I think I need to get it checked out. It'd be similar to, heaven forbid, but let's say I'm having some twinges in my heart. Maybe I don't have the same kind of energy, or maybe I have a pain once in a while. I'm not going to go to Google and diagnose myself. I'm going to get it checked out. And that's what we really encourage people to do.
That's a good idea. If an individual would start to go through that process and say, something's not right, I probably need to get it checked out. But what about when somebody is adamant, no, there's nothing wrong with me, my memory's great, et cetera, et cetera. So when does a husband or a wife or caregiver or whatever get involved and say, no, it's time to get your memory checked? Is that something that just kind of hits you in the face, or is it's very subtle?
Well, it can be both. So a couple things. The scenario that you described is very, very, very common. And I'll just give you an example of maybe the why. If you had said to me, I'm really worried about your memory, Amy. You're acting like your mother did, and we both know she had Alzheimer's disease. Making that up. And you said that to me, I'm going to automatically be defensive. Because the thing that's hard to know is sometimes the person who's having the changes may or may not be aware. Sometimes they're very aware, sometimes not. So you can't approach it with the, I know best, I'm going to tell you what to do. So let me kind of take a couple steps back. Here's the two things to remember. If this is different for your loved one, so it makes you say, man, I'm really worried about my mom. She never used to forget that much stuff. And, I was driving with her. I think she wasn't sure where she's going. When it makes you kind of have pause and go, this is weird. This isn't right. It's different for the person. That to me is one of the things that makes me sit up and really pay attention. The other thing is that the changes that you're seeing are impacting your loved one's daily life. And I use this example all the time, and I use it because it's a good one, because I think all of us have done this at one time. So I don't know, if you're ever in a rush, you leave the house, you don't have your phone. Now, I can remember years ago where that wouldn't have been a problem, but pretty much now we all have our phones glued to us somewhere.
Yep.
If I get to work and I don't have my phone with me, and to be candid, Jeff, I have everything in my phone. I use it for work. I use it for my family. I have a lot of information in that phone, and I don't have my phone. Doggone it, that's really kind of a pain. It doesn't disrupt my daily life. I may be a little mad at myself, but you know what? I can go back, get my phone, try and figure out why I forgot it. And just as an aside, having a routine and keeping your phone and keys and important things in the same place, a routine is really helpful. So that's annoying. Let me give you an example of something that would get in the way of my daily life. You and I have been working together over these past months, and we communicate via email, we communicate via text. What if you said to me, Amy, you know what? Could you text me that article that we were talking about so that I have it? And I look at my phone. We've communicated that way before. I can't either text you or write an email that makes sense. That would get in the way of my daily life, because I use my phone for everything, personal and business. If I wasn't able to use my phone to communicate with you, well, we wouldn't even be able to do this interview. So
Correct.
That's an example that I use a lot. It's not just misplacing things. It can be not really understanding how to use it, not being able to do things when you're given multiple steps. An example of that is my favorite one again. I can make coffee half asleep. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty good at it. Once in a while, I get things mixed up. And when I say I get them mixed up, I have to laugh because I have forgotten to put my cup under my Keurig. Again, so I've had a little coffee bath.
Yep.
But what I mean by that is I have to know that I want coffee. I have to know where my coffee maker is. I have to know that it needs water. I have to know that I put in one of the little pots. I have to know what button to push. I have to remember to put the cup underneath it. But those are things that our brain does automatically, usually. When we see some changes in that, or people aren't able to do the things that they've done for a long time, but again, we've done them in automatic in the past, that's just something that gets in the way of our normal lives. A lot of examples.
Yeah, makes a lot of
sense. And I use this saying a lot. When in doubt, check it out. We all need to have our health checks.
Mm-hmm.
So back to your question, how does someone who's concerned have this conversation? I think it's really good to take note. Jot down what you're seeing. Time of day, what are you seeing? Why are you worried about it? I forget things too. Maybe I'm making a big deal of it. It's almost like we kind of talk ourselves into not worrying because it's easier to not worry. So take notes of what you see. It can be very helpful if you have the opportunity to talk to your loved one's practitioner. Again, but you want to have your notes. Here's something that can be difficult. It can be very delicate. I've had a couple caregivers say, I did talk to my mom's doctor. And you know what my mom's doctor did? My mom's doctor told my mom that I did that. One approach can be, you know what? It's okay if I go to the doctor with you. Again, very low key, but you want to see how that interaction goes. If you have significant concerns, and the last thing you want to do is to raise those concerns with your loved one in the room in front of your practitioner. So if you're meeting with your doctor, what you don't want to have happen is your doctor ask your loved one to say, so, how's your memory? Your loved one says, oh, I'm fine. You do not want to say, oh, your memory's not fine. You know that. You know why? How would you feel if I did that to you?
I'd be defensive.
Defensive, disrespected, not like my partner. And
among other things, yes.
We always want to be aligned and on the same side, so to speak, as our loved one. In that situation, so one thing I've encouraged people to do is to say, you know what, honey? I'll be right back. I need to use the restroom. But that can be an opportunity for you to catch your practitioner's nurse or their medical assistant or the practitioner to say, I want you to know what's going on. I'm happy to talk with you more, but I'm not going to talk in front of my spouse. The reason this actually is kind of close to my heart is I unfortunately did that with my mom, Jeff. She didn't have memory issues. Our mutual doctor asked her a question about how something was going, and it sounded like moonlight and roses. And your friend Amy's head almost popped off, and she argued and pretty much made her mother, and I still regret this. This was 20 years ago. It really upset her. And it upset her to the point that I felt like I was 5 years old because we went out in the parking lot and my mother gave me a talking to like I hadn't had in years. It was undermining.
Sure.
It made her feel like I wasn't on her team. I thought I was doing the right thing because I wanted the doctor to know that this was a real issue. And that was right. I mean, that was not a bad intention. And that can happen when we do go to our doctor with a loved one. We have to be very thoughtful about how we do that. It's very delicate.
Sure.
It's finesse. And I'm not saying it's easy. I promise you, if it were easy, I'd bottle it and sell it.
Well, Amy, I want to thank you so much for your time and the information. You're always a wealth of knowledge and what you bring to this.
You know what? We talk a lot, Jeff, and I'm really honored that you continue to invite me back because there's so many things. You know, we could probably talk for a week, but that might be a little bit too much for the audience.
Yeah, but
there's so many different topics that we can touch on. And I think one of the things that you and I both know is that sometimes people don't know about the resources or the support until they get in the situation. And then when they get in the situation, that sense of urgency and need to get information is even heightened.
Sure.
So I believe the more we talk about it and normalize things and people know that there is help, we can connect you to resources. I'm hoping that really kind of changes the anxiety level for the better. In terms of knowing it's just, it's just part of what we do.
Well,
how we roll.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I got involved in it. And I needed information and resources. I took it upon myself to dig and dig and dig. And for me, talking to you, you've got so much knowledge, light years ahead of me. We're kind of picking your brain, but you're providing information that a lot of people don't know where to get, don't know how to get it, and what to do when they get it. So this has been excellent again. It's not that rough. It's not that hard. It's actually very simple. Mm-hmm. You just have to be receptive to it and take it and go with it. And then that's just the first step.
Well, and I admire that you did reach out and you took it upon yourself. Sometimes people don't do that. I think the other thing is when you're in the situation as a caregiver, maybe somebody who's living with memory issues, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. You don't know what resources you need. You need a little bit of help to kind of first talk about it and kind of get an understanding of what's going on, because you may not have ever been in this situation before. Most people haven't. It can feel like you're thrown into a whole new universe. And that's overwhelming for all of us.
It is. Well, again, I thank you so much. You have a wonderful week, and I know we'll talk again, no doubt. No doubt.
I'm looking forward to it, Jeff. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you again, Amy Schenck. An awesome job as always. You can tell she's very passionate about what she does. And that is a plus for anyone and everyone who has a loved one with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. A blessing to all.
We'll be right back to GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I remember we were all in the hospital room, and for like 10 seconds she recognized who we were, and then it was gone. So it's like a thief. It's taking away memories and who you are as a person. Over 5.5 million Americans have Alzheimer's. That number may double by 2050. For more information, visit rightfocus.org.
This is GutPunched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers.
The 2024 Walk to End Alzheimer's is coming up soon. Some are in late October and many in November. In Sun City Center, October 19th is the date. Sarasota, Florida, November 2nd. Naples, Florida, November 9th. Boca Raton, Florida, November 10th. And in Fort Myers, Florida, November 16th. Now, no matter where you live, you can find the walk nearest you by going to alz.org. Just put in your zip code when you find that tab and find one for yourself. There is a Spanish tab there also if that's what you need. Or you can call 800-272-3900. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. We hope you were able to get some positive, helpful information and maybe direction to some things you weren't quite sure of. Call it hope that you will get through this very concerning time in your life as a caregiver. If you know someone who has a loved one who has Alzheimer's or any type of dementia, that you would let them know about this podcast. For more information and resources, you can check out the Alzheimer's Support Network at https://alzsupport.org/about us. And you can use that same web address to find your local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. You can visit alz.org/local resources/find your local chapter. And also check out the Dubin Center at dubincenter.com. Now, if you haven't already, we ask that you check out our new website. We're pretty proud of it. Tell us what you think. Let us know where you listen to the podcast and what state you're in. We would really appreciate that. We've heard from people in South Carolina, New York, Tennessee, Virginia, Baltimore, Louisiana, all over the place, which is really cool. The website is gutpunched.com, and the email address is gutpunchedac@outlook.com, or the new one, jeff@gutpunched.com. If you own a business and would like to be part of our website or podcast, let us know. A special shout out to Rick Peterson, Aura Santana, Gentry Thomas, Dan Moser, Sheila Book, the Dubin Center, and of course my wife for their tremendous help and support in making this podcast possible. Thanks for joining us, and please come back again for more. God bless.
This has been Gut Punched, Alzheimer's and Caregivers, with your host, Jeff Edwards. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to us on all the platforms like Spotify, Apple, Pandora, and more. If you have a question or you want to get in touch, our email is gutpunchedac@outlook.com. Or you can visit our website at gutpunched.com.